Hello, welcome to the Hey Boomer Show, where we believe that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host for Hey Boomer. And today I have a couple of announcements before we get started with the full show, which is going to be about taking a pause or living in the neutral zone. So we'll talk more about that. But first, I wanted to mention my friend Christine Baumgartner, who is a relationship coach. And Christine works with people who are either getting into the dating world again and are so frustrated with all of that, the dating sites and the confusion and we just don't even know what to expect when we get on those sites. And so she helps work through your mindset to figure out what you really want. And then she also works with people who are in relationships, new relationships that have started up at this later stage in life. And, we bring stuff with us. So how to work through some of the old beliefs and things that might be getting in your way in this new relationship. You can find Christine at her website. She also has a podcast, but you can find her on theperfectcatch.com. And there's a questionnaire there that you can fill out and, set up a complimentary conversation with Christine. It's really helpful. I mean, I call on her every once in a while when I get stuck and confused about relationship issues. So check out Christine at theperfectcatch.com and please tell her that I sent you. The other things that I want to talk to you about are totally free resources on my website. So the first is the vitality assessment, and you can find that on the homepage at heyboomer.biz. And the vitality assessment will give you some insights into, are you fully vitalized? Are you sustained energy? Is your cup kind of half empty? Or is it really time to take stock and look at the way you're living your life now? And do you need to make some changes? So all you have to do is go to the homepage, heyboomer.biz, and click on the vitality assessment link, and you can get that downloaded and get some insights into where you are. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you about is that I have opened 2 new What's Next coaching cohorts for April. The first will start on Saturday, April the 15th, and we are going to meet from 9:30 in the morning till 11 or 11:30, depending on the size of the group. And the second one will start on Thursday, April the 20th, and that one will meet from 5:30 to 7 to 5. I'm sorry. That one will meet from 5 to 6:30 or 7. Depending again on the size of the group. And so by having a Saturday offering and a Thursday offering, it kind of gives you the opportunity to choose one that works better for your schedule or for your friend's schedule. So let your friends know that they can schedule a complimentary coaching session with me, about 20 minutes. It will give them some insight into what I do, how I work with them, and really kind of insights into where they might be feeling stuck. So they can go to heyboomer.biz/coaching and schedule that 20-minute consultation with me. So please encourage your friends and family and neighbors and whoever else you love to go ahead and check out the coaching. All right, so let's talk about taking a pause. Hi Doris, and hi Deb. When I started to design this episode, I was thinking about it as a way to talk to you about the mental health benefits of taking a pause, of slowing down a little bit, of stepping away from all of that keeps us so busy and distracted. I've studied this for years. I use it in my coaching practice, and I like to feel helpful to people. So that was really my motivation for developing this episode. But as the universe would do, it presented me with an opportunity for taking a pause. And we take a pause when we need to take a time to kind of reflect and think about where we are and what happened and what that means to us and all those kinds of things. So thank you, Brene Brown. I am going to be a little bit vulnerable with you to start off this episode to tell you why I felt like I needed the pause this weekend. And I'm doing that because I think of you all as friends. My word for the year is connection. This is, sharing some of our struggles is a way of connecting. So here goes. I have a friend who is a mutual friend with lots of other people that I know. And when we first met, probably a couple years ago, we were both in relationships. So we were friends. Recently, things have changed, and both of us have availability to be exploring other relationships. And so we started to see each other, and it was great. We were having so much fun, great conversations. Everything about it was great. And following the advice of Christine, we were also seeing other people because as you're trying to find your forever person, it does make sense to see more than one person exclusively at a time to kind of figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what you need, all of those kinds of things. So we'd gotten to the point where I was feeling like I really didn't want to see anybody else but him. And he got to the point where he felt like there was this other person he'd been seeing for a longer period of time and really wanted to explore that. So we put the whole relationship thing on pause. And of course, that sent me into time for this weekend to feel like I needed the pause. I needed to stop and reflect and think about what I was feeling. And, the inclination is, I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to be in this yucky space. I'm going to just jump right back in. I'm going to find somebody else who wants me. Get back on those stupid dating sites or go to the meetups or talk to girlfriends and who else do you know and all of that kind of stuff. But the truth is that is not the right strategy. That just hides the discomfort. It doesn't solve any problems. And truthfully, the pain is always going to be there underneath unless you live in it for a little while, deal with it for a little while. So what does it mean to take a pause? Interestingly enough, I was having this conversation with my son last week before any of this happened, just while I was thinking about, developing this episode. And so I asked him, what does it mean to him to take a pause? Well, his initial response was he likes to go trout fishing. So that is a pause for him. But what really is the pause for him is the perspective of being out in nature by the trout stream by himself and having that time to just be in the moment, watching for those fish, listening to the birds, feeling the breeze, feeling the sun. For him, that was the pause. For me, a lot of times the pause means stepping away from the routine. I do stay very busy with preparing for the show and paying my bills and cleaning my house and, all of the medical appointments, all those things that you have to do or you feel like you have to do. And for me, the pause is to step away from that routine. So it may mean getting out into nature. It may mean reading a book. It may mean sitting right out on my back porch and watching those carpenter bees and realizing how very aggressive they can be. But it's a break from the routine. And that's what taking a pause is. But the truth is, many of us avoid that because the pause can be uncomfortable. And so we fill our lives with busy in order to avoid the stillness. I remember many years ago when I was living in Asheville, I was a single mom. I was working really hard to try and get my degree, figuring out how to feed my kids and pay the bills and all of those other things. And a friend, seeing like I was just spinning, said to me one day, "You know what? Let's take a day completely unplanned." I looked at him in shock. How on earth do you take a day completely unplanned? Like, how do you even know when to get up? What are you going to do when you get up? I just could not even imagine a completely unplanned day. But I agreed to try. And as usual, the first thing I do when I get up is I have my cup of coffee. So that was the start of the day. But after, feeling very uncomfortable, like, what do we do next? I started to to lean into it a little bit, to say, okay, well, why don't we go out into the woods? We were in Asheville. The trails were right there. Let's go for a walk, sit by a stream, watch the clouds. Oh, we're hungry? Well, why don't we eat? Oh, we're tired? Let's take a rest. It was like just listening to yourself. And what did you need or want in that moment? Not something we do very often, and not something that we're very good at. And all of those fears and concerns of, oh my gosh, all these other things that I should be doing today, those kind of slipped away. The tension eased out of my body. The monkey mind that keeps us saying, we have to do this, we have to do that, all these things quieted down. And when I rejoined my normal routine the next day, everything got done that had to get done. It wasn't like it fell through the cracks, but I felt refreshed and re-energized. So sometimes we get ourselves caught up in doing because we don't know how to just be. We hear a lot of talk about mindfulness these days. And it's an important thing, just being. Instead of being a human doing, try being a human being. Another part of the conversation that I had with my son as we got more into what does it mean to take a pause, he talked about values. He's very smart. So when you think about taking a pause, think about your values. Is time alone important for you to recharge? Is time with friends and family important to you, but you may have been neglecting some of that because of other things that seem to be more important at the moment? Is exercise and health important to you? Is making a difference important to you? Living your values in the pause adds more meaning and depth. So think about how you want to be in that pause. I found that when I'm coaching people, they usually know what their values are. Sometimes they may have trouble, narrowing it down to the top 10, but they usually know what their values are. They also start to recognize that they may not have been living those values because they've been faced with so many other things that they had to do. But we in this boomer generation can flip some of that now. We can truly live into our values. Sometimes I hear people say, you know what, I'm busier now than I've ever been. But my question to them is the busyness just filling the space that you could be taking in the quiet time because the quiet time is too uncomfortable? Are you busy with the things that feed your values? When I'm coaching in the What's Next group coaching, all of my clients get a book by William Bridges called Transitions. In this book, William Bridges defines the 3 stages of a transition: the ending, the neutral zone, and new beginnings. The truth is that most of us have never taken the time in the neutral zone. Think about the times in your past when you experienced an ending. You left college, most likely you went right into your first job. If you were lucky, you changed jobs because you wanted to, but if you got laid off, the reaction was, oh my gosh, I've got to find my next job right away. And so you immediately went to the job boards, you immediately started networking, and you never took that time to step back and say, what did I like about that job? What didn't I like about that job? What do I want to have in my next job that would really make it feel more meaningful to me? Those are the kinds of questions you would ask yourself in the neutral zone. Same with when a relationship ends. We don't like that feeling of loneliness and emptiness or rejection or whatever it is that the feeling is. And so we immediately try to fill that up, whether we're trying to find our next partner, whether we're just staying out busy with other people. Sometimes we try to mask it with substances like alcohol. But the feelings, those doubts and concerns, they never go away. So when you find yourself in a transition, this is really an opportunity for you to be in the neutral zone. So what does that mean? The neutral zone is the time between your old life and your new beginning, let's say. It's the time between leaving your career and redefining yourself as the person without that career. It's the time between ending a relationship and redefining yourself as someone without that relationship, as someone who is just you. It's the time between being a caregiver and when that caregiving ends, redefining yourself as not a caregiver, but as someone else who has other things to give to the world. So being in the neutral zone is the time between those old endings and the new beginnings. And Bridges calls the time in the neutral zone as being attentively inactive and having ritualized routine. Attentive inactivity and ritualized routine. So that could be things like making your coffee, taking a walk, watching those carpenter bees being aggressive to each other, planting your vegetables, reading a book, sitting by a stream. The things you do without an agenda, without an intention, they're just being. It's not something that we're used to, and it can be uncomfortable. A common question I ask is, well, how long do I have to be in the neutral zone? It differs, right? It differs on the experience. It differs on what you're transitioning from. It differs on the individual. Some people may transition through a neutral zone in just a couple of days. Some people, it may take a few months. You don't want it to go on indefinitely. That might be when you consider getting some additional help. But let me give you a few suggestions of ways that you might successfully be in the neutral zone during a transition? The first would be to accept that it is important for you to be in the pause or in the neutral zone. If you understand the importance of it, then you're less likely to slip into the two traps that I would call being in reverse or being in fast forward. And so what that means is if you're in reverse, you're trying to go back to the way things were. Like if you left your job, I want to go back as a consultant. If you left a relationship, you want to go back and try and fix it. Like Thomas Wolfe said, you can never go home again. You've changed, situations have changed, and trying to go back is only going to frustrate you, and it doesn't work. Being in fast forward is what we typically do when we're trying to cover up or mask those feelings of the pain, the hurt, and the loss. And so we're immediately trying to fill in that space. And we certainly don't want to sit around and think about it. We just want to get going and feel like we're making things better. Same goes for when people move into retirement. You know, they leave their job and they think, okay, I know what I'm going to do in retirement. And within a few months, a lot of people find that they're just adrift. They are feeling useless. They're feeling purposeless. They don't know what to do with all those hours in the day. And so they find themselves either becoming like a couch potato, becoming unhealthy, abusing substances. That's pretty common for a lot of people in retirement. Just being busy with stuff. You don't even know what stuff, just so that they don't have to spend the time figuring out what they really want to do. So the first thing I would suggest is recognize the importance of taking that pause or being in the neutral zone. The second thing I would suggest is to find a regular time to be alone. I mean, for me, I live alone, so I still take the time in the morning to sit down with my cup of coffee and a book and a journal and just take 30 minutes to an hour just for quiet reflection time. I remember when I was going through my first divorce, I went to stay at a cabin for a few days. This was before cell phones. There was no phone in this cabin. I brought a book and a journal, and my intention was to try and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I just spent a lot of time walking around in the woods, journaling, being. And I don't know that I came out with any absolute decisive action plans, but I did come out with the feeling like I knew what I needed to do. I knew what was going to be right for me. And I think the only way I was able to get to that point was by taking that time alone. So, some people don't like to go take a few days alone if they're in a partnership, but still try and find time to be alone outside of your normal environment so that you're not distracted by the day-to-day daily routines and daily responsibilities of being at home. Find some time, especially when you're in a transition, to go away, even if it's just to a coffee shop for a little hour, to be by yourself. Number 3 would be to write your life story. Why? Because sometimes the process of writing our life story really helps us reflect on where we've been so that we get a better idea of where we're going. You can look back at other endings that you've had in your life and how you've handled them and what worked and what didn't work. You can also look back at successes you've had in your life and what about them was special and meaningful to you. I have found that in coaching people, writing their life story has been so impactful when they really take the time. I give them tools. I don't just say, go write your life story. I give them tools to help them navigate and put parameters around it and really get into what it is that's going to help them as they move forward. And people have found this a very impactful exercise for them as they are moving forward through a transition. And then my fourth suggestion is to discover what you really want by taking a pause. Now, I have a lot of people that say to me, I don't know what I really want. Like, isn't that selfish anyway to like focus on just what I want? Or, or maybe we put up that limiting belief that says, well, but if I focus on my dreams of what I might really want, I probably am not going to get it. Well, how do you know that? If you never focus on it, you'll never get it. So if you, in the pause, while you're in this neutral zone, while you're going through this transition, if you take a time to really be honest with yourself, you don't even have to tell anybody else. Just be honest with yourself. What is it that you really want that will fulfill your values, that will give you a sense of meaning and purpose, that may answer your question about what's my legacy? If you take the time to think about what do you really want, and it may be simple, it may be, I just really want to grow a vegetable garden. I just really want to be a little more flexible so that I can get down on the floor and play with the grandkids. It's okay to be whatever it is that you really want to be. It's not selfish, it's self-care. So those are my suggestions for being in the neutral zone. Accept that it's important. Find a regular time and place to be alone. Work on your life story and figure out what you really want. So where am I in the pause I took this weekend? That's an interesting question. This weekend, I did feel slowed down. I felt like I was kind of moving through space without much intention. And as Bridges suggested, I practiced attentive inactivity and ritualized routine. I dropped off the recyclables. I went to the bank and the grocery store. I sat on the back porch and I watched those aggressive carpenter bees. I planted a few vegetables. I did what I felt like doing, and I didn't do what I didn't feel like doing. I just was being attentively inactive. And today, honestly, I do feel better. So taking a pause is about being with what matters and living your values. It's about living life, not just being busy in life or living up to others' expectations. It's about listening to your inner voice. I encourage you to sit in the stillness, even if it's uncomfortable, knowing that it is also an important part of life. Hiding from it or covering it up with busy does not make it go away. It simply masks it. Embrace it, lean into it, listen, and you might even find that you learn to love the pause. So if this discussion was meaningful to you, I'd love to know. I'd love to have you drop me an email. Let me know what you thought. If it was meaningful to you, I would also ask that you share the podcast with your friends and family. That helps grow the audience, and they trust you because you are a friend or family. And if you know somebody who is struggling with transition, encourage them to set up a 20-minute free consultation. It will give them an idea of who I am, what the program is, and it will also give them insight into where they might be feeling stuck and how we could work together to remove that stuckness feeling. At least encourage them to go download the vitality assessment from the website heyboomer.biz. For next week is his name is Bradley. His name is Bradley Clark, and Bradley is an author of a book called Be the Bird. And Be the Bird uses the metaphor of, imagine that you're on a branch and you're a bird and the branch starts to break. If you're the bird, you can flap your wings and you don't have to fall when the branch falls. And he talks about financial planning, in a sense, using this metaphor, talking about confidence, optimism, and resilience. So it's really an interesting perspective, more holistic. I think it will be a good conversation, a good discussion, and hopefully everybody will learn something. I certainly have been learning reading the book. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. And you know, I always like to remind you that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boom.